Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hi, everyone. This is Tammy Patzer, and I'm really excited because today's guest is Charles Rowe with AlgiSys, and we're going to be talking about some really interesting things related to Omega-3. And I didn't even know that you could get Omega-3 from any other source other than fish until I met Charles. So I'm going to let him explain more about what he and his company is bringing to the market. And just to let you know a little bit more about Charles Rowe, he is the founder and chief technology officer at AlgiSys. And what they're bringing to the market with the Omega-3 EPA is a vegan alternative to fish-based omegas. So, welcome, Charles. So tell me a little bit more about your background.
Well, good morning. I'm a chemical engineer by training. I've got a bachelor's, master's, and PhD in chemical engineering. I spent a little bit of time in corporate America at companies like General Electric and Glidden. I've done a lot of research and development consulting over the years, and it's out of that consulting that I eventually founded AlgiSys.
So it's so interesting to me, and I didn't know this until I was reading about the background of AlgiSys, but this Omega-3 EPA and DHA industry overall is it $36 billion? Is that accurate?
That's correct. Yes, the total market for all the Omega-3 products consumed globally is around $36 billion and growing very rapidly.
So tell me more, why is this so important to have this plant-based Omega-3 alternative versus the fish-based?
Well, first and foremost, EPA and DHA omega-3s are very important to your body. They're important for both human nutrition as well as animal nutrition. We should be taking omega-3s every single day because our body does not make EPA or DHA omega-3. So these two particular compounds are found mostly just in fish oil these days. You can get them from a few other sources like krill, but additionally, you must put these two compounds into your diet. And the short story is that DHA is really good for brain and eye health, whereas EPA is a very powerful anti-inflammatory, and it's good for cardiovascular health as well as for your circulatory system.
So obviously our bodies don't make it, so we have to supplement with it. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, gee, because I don't think I'm supplementing it. So I probably need to. Tell me, how did you come up with this particular idea and decide to focus on this Omega-3? What made you realize that this was a place to work in?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I did a lot of research and development consulting over the years. And when I was consulting for a few Asian and Japanese multinational corporations, I kept running across algae technologies as being important to them. And the more I began to explore the algae industry and the global applications for microalgae, the more I became convinced that I should probably focus the rest of my career on trying to commercialize algae-based technologies. And EPA Omega-3, because it has such a large market and because it has such a high value, is why I decided to focus on EPA Omega-3. Now, DHA Omega-3 is currently commercially available. A couple companies have already started producing DHA Omega-3 from microalgae, but no one has really successfully, very broadly, at large scale, commercialized EPA Omega-3 from microalgae. And that's what I focused on with AlgiSys.
So where are you at in the development of this product?
Well, I'm glad you asked that because we are just getting ready to go into the market. We spent a series of years doing some very important research and development work to get to the point where we could commercialize the technology. And now we're moving very rapidly in the direction of producing samples for customers, and we hope to enter the market in the near future.
So right now, is it available for the average consumer, or is it only limited availability?
Well, presently, EPA Omega-3 isn't widely available for your average consumer, except through fish oil. You can purchase dietary supplements that have EPA as a function of it being in fish oil. But currently, our product is not yet available, and we're hoping to very quickly solve that problem.
So with this technology, you're getting the Omega-3 EPA and DHA from you said microalgae and algae process. So what does that look like? How do you extract, I guess, the benefits out of this algae?
Well, you would basically consume our products. We're going to be producing an EPA algae oil. And that oil is produced by some traditional biotechnology means. We're using standard industrial fermentation technology to grow our algae in the dark. We're feeding it a sugar. And then once it's at a point where we can harvest the algae, we dry the algae. We use extraction methods to remove the oil from the microalgae. And then that oil is what contains the EPA that's beneficial to your body. And so we're using some technologies that have been around for a while, but the processing of algae is not necessarily straightforward. So that's why we've been spending a few years here commercializing our process.
So it's actually a fermentation product. So what does that look like? If I were to go to a plant and see how this product is created, what would I see?
Well, the best analogy is that we're essentially brewing algae, much like you'd brew beer. You take yeast and put it in a fermentation tank, and in a little while you have beer that's produced by that process. We're using similar processes whereby we're fermenting the microalgae, just like you'd brew beer or make wine or any of the other things that people have been producing for thousands of years by fermentation.
I'm really curious about the quality of what you're producing versus what they get from fish.
That's a great point. Our microalgae, because we're using a sterile industrial process, our oil containing EPA will be free of any of the contaminants that you would find in fish oil. Fish, just because of being out in the open ocean before they're harvested, oftentimes will have lead, mercury, PCBs. Even these days, plastics are making their way into fish. And when you harvest the fish and extract the oil, you do get a lot of contamination that comes from what the fish have consumed as part of their diet. And as part of their diet, by the way, fish get their omega-3s by eating algae. So we're just going back to the original source of the omega-3 fatty acids, which is microalgae.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. And I can really see that because you're actually growing it and feeding it, you have all that total control of quality, when a natural source of fish, they're just out there in the ocean, and the more polluted the ocean is, obviously, the less the fish would have quality. How much, in the terms of demand for this, I'm sure you've done a lot of research. If this is something that obviously human beings have to take in order to supplement, the demand for this must be pretty high. If you didn't create what you're creating, how long would it take for us to deplete our resources, like the fish out in the ocean?
Well, that's another good point. We are already coming close to depleting the available supply of EPA that the ocean can produce through fish. Presently, if everybody took the recommended daily allowance of EPA and DHA, omega-3, in their food or through a dietary supplement, we would max out the ocean's capacity overnight to produce EPA and DHA. We have a real supply crisis. There's a real sustainability crisis. And about 70% of the world's omega-3 oils come from fish harvested off the coast of Peru. So we're essentially captive to whatever Peru can or cannot produce.
Wow, that's really interesting because I didn't know any of this. So when you are creating this, is this something you talked about sustainability, and if everybody took their daily recommended dose of this, you said that it would literally be an overnight depletion. What is the sustainability of what you're creating? Is it unlimited, or how does that work?
Well, everything pretty much has limits, but if you're producing something by standard industrial biotechnology, it's going to be sustainable, and we'll be able to meet the rapidly growing demand for EPA omega-3. So we're really excited because we're part of the process to make producing EPA something that's sustainable and renewable, because we're using renewable resources in order to produce our oils.
So renewable resource, and it's a vegan, which should make a lot of people who are very health conscious happy. I wanted to ask you a little bit more about the fact that you're a pioneer in this new technology. What are some of the challenges that you face along the way when you've been putting a lot of time and energy into this creation? What are the challenges?
Well, I'm a technical person, so, technology challenges are just something I'm used to living with and dealing with, and there's usually nothing we come across that we can't mitigate. Now, the real problem or the real challenge I find these days is just the environment for raising capital. I think fundraising is probably the most challenging aspect of my job, because I oftentimes have to take very complex technology and explain that in very simple terms to people that don't have technical backgrounds. And when you're pioneering a new technology, you do take your career into your own hands. When you venture outside corporate America like I've done, and you go and you raise capital for a technology that has strong promise but still has to be proven. And I think we're at the point where we've proven that our technology can work, and we're just at a place where we want to deploy the technology and start to generate some revenue and make some money.
So with this new technology, do you have to jump through any hoops like you're in the Cleveland area of Ohio in the United States, with this vegan omega-3 EPA and DHA, do you have to, is this something that you have to get approved by anything? Because it's a food supplement, I don't really know all the rules that you have to jump through. Do you have to get anything approved or anything like that?
Well, as a matter of fact, there's always regulatory oversight for anything that you put into your body. Now, supplements have one set of regulations that you have to meet that are relatively straightforward and a little easier to meet than, say, for things that would be classified as a food or a beverage, or for that matter, a pharmaceutical. Interestingly enough, there's so many different markets that EPA can go into. You're looking at animal feed, aquaculture, food, beverage, supplements, pharma, even cosmetics. And there are regulatory hurdles, but nothing that, I think we would have any trouble overcoming. The thing that I'm most excited about are some of the pharmaceutical developments, by the way, in the area of EPA and DHA. Right now, they're taking EPA and DHA and deriving a lot of different drug compounds for clinical trials. And so down the road, I think you're just going to see demand for EPA continue to skyrocket. And of course, at each level of regulatory approval, there's some things you have to show the government in order to prove that your product is safe for consumption.
So then basically what you're creating is a foundational product, because it can be used for pharmaceuticals or cosmetics or animal food. So it's that high quality foundational product that you're actually creating. Am I accurate on that?
That's correct. We have essentially what I call a platform technology. We're producing a raw material that has so many applications and so much potential to it that I'm really excited about what the future holds for AlgiSys, because we could go a number of different directions once we start producing EPA for various markets and industries.
That really is exciting, because again, I mean, I'm listening to you and my mind starts to spin about, oh my goodness, if you're at that foundational level, creating a sustainable product that has all these applications, then of course AlgiSys is in a very good position for providing that and for growth. So that's really exciting. So coming from that perspective of an entrepreneur, like a scientist or an engineer entrepreneur, what would you say would be some good advice that you might offer someone who's trying to create something like you have?
Well, I guess the thing that gets you through some of the challenges of being an entrepreneur, really it boils down to persistence. I must admit that, it is also important to have a great team around you, because you sink or swim based on the strength of your overall team. And no one person has all the skill sets or has all the knowledge necessary to pioneer a new technology. And so I'd always recommend that if you're going to start a company or get involved in a startup, that you try to find some good business partners and people that, fill in your gaps and your deficits, but also are able to play on your strengths. And as the technical person on our team, as the chief technologist, my role has really been to focus on developing the technology, but it's exciting to get involved in things like fundraising or regulatory approval, or even engaging with customers and trying to meet their needs.
So right now, what would you say your time frame is for where are you at in this whole structure of going to market? Are we looking at months or still a couple years out, or where are we in that stage of development?
Well, we hope it's months, but of course, with startups, sometimes you run into things that take a little more time than you expect. But we are right now talking to and working with manufacturing partners as well as with customers. And the last thing that we have to do right now is raise our Series B round of capital so that we can fund some of the work that we're doing with these contract manufacturers that we're talking to, as well as with the customers that we've been engaging with. So it's an exciting time. Honestly, I have more work to do than you would believe, but it's a lot of fun.
It sounds like it. I'm coming from it from someone who a few minutes ago, I really knew nothing other than, hey, this sounds good. It's a vegan Omega-3 product, and that it could help, the fish population. That was pretty much what I knew about it. So if somebody wants to reach out to you and find out more, what's the best way to do that? Probably by email. My email address is charles@algisys.com, ALGISYS.com. Okay, that sounds really good, and I'll make sure that there's a live link to your website also, so people can do a little bit more due diligence. Before I let you go, is there anything else that you'd like to add about AlgiSys that I may have forgotten to ask you about? No, other than the fact that we're really excited about commercializing our technology and getting into the market, because that's where the rubber meets the road, and that's also when you really start to monetize the fruits of your labor. And so we're at a pretty critical juncture in our development as a company, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the future holds. Well, thank you so much, everyone. We've been speaking with Charles Rowe from AlgiSys about the new technology for vegan omega-3. And this is pretty exciting to be in on the ground floor of this foundational product. So thank you so much, Charles, for sharing today.
No problem. Take care.
Everyone, this is Tammy Patzer. Go make it a beautiful day.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.